All right. So again, welcome. My name is Isioma Odum, and I am the Chicago Outreach Senior Coordinator at Faith in Place. I've been at Faith in Place a little over 4 years now, originally from Washington State. And I moved to Chicago by way of Sacramento, California to pursue a master's in social justice from Loyola University. I'm a trained TRHT practitioner and a recent Culture of Health and Leadership for Racial Justice cohort participants. My position includes, but is not limited to, assisting to develop material and event programming that will educate houses of worship on all of Faith in Place programs and areas. I would like to share a little welcoming before we get into our discussion tonight. This is a borrowed welcoming, but I would like to welcome people of all genders, and this may include people who identify as women, men, transgender, queer, or others, people of African descent, Black, African American, Asian descent, Arab descent, European descent, those who identify as Hispanic, Latinx people, indigenous to this land, and people of mixed and multiple descendants. I would like to welcome languages spoken here: Spanish, English, indigenous languages, sign languages, etc. People of different class backgrounds, working class, middle class, owning class, or who aren't sure where they fit on the class spectrum. I'd like to welcome people who currently struggle with getting access to the resources necessary for survival, like healthcare, adequate housing, reliable transportation, and childcare, and people who currently have more access to those resources. We welcome you. I would like to welcome people with disabilities, visible or invisible, gay, lesbian, bisexual, heterosexual, pansexual, queer, or others from whom none of these labels fit. We welcome your bodies and the different ways you experience yours. I'd like to welcome survivors and people who identify as activists and people who don't, single, married, partner, dating, monogamous, or polyamorous relations, those in their teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, your emotions, your joy and bliss, grief, rage, indignation, your contentment, and your disappointment. I'd like to welcome those who support you to be here, your families, genetic and otherwise, and people with different faiths, religious traditions, faith practices, and private practices that don't belong to a tradition: agnostic, atheist, seekers, spiritualists. I'd like to welcome those who have passed away, our elders, and those who are in our lives that guide us. And finally, I'd like to welcome the ancestors who lived in this land where we now reside. Welcome the spirits of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and the Potawatomi, the natives who lived in this area before the Europeans came. What are some of the other aspects of diversity that you would like to welcome into this space? Please share in the chat with us. All right, next. So Faith in Place works with houses of worship. Our vision is for people of diverse faiths, spiritualities, leading the environmental movement to create healthy and just and sustainable communities for all. Our mission is to empower people of diverse faiths and spiritualities to be leaders in advancing environmental and racial justice, providing resources to educate, connect, and advocate for healthier communities. We are located in Chicago, the north and northwest suburbs, central Illinois, southern Illinois, Lake County, and recently merged into Gary, Indiana, and Wisconsin as well. We have 5 program areas: water, food and sustainable land use, energy and advocacy, and our youth program. We implement our programs using our Green Team model. A Green Team is a group of 3 to 5 people at a house of worship that are interested in educating their members about the importance of environmental justice. Let me just go to the chat really quick so I can see. All right. Next. Where are you located? I'd like to know where everyone is from. Please put in the chat what region of the world you are in. Love to see Madison, Wisconsin, Normal, Illinois, Chicago, Gary, Indiana, Iowa, welcome. Wilmington, welcome. Colorado, welcome. Kent, yay, I'm from Washington. Indianapolis, yay. All right, welcome everyone. We'll go next. So this discussion tonight will be a very soft introduction into a very complex issue. And I do have to admit that, if you came here tonight thinking that I was going to provide you with all the solutions on how to dismantle systems of oppression, I'm sad to say that that is not the case. I will ask some reflective questions and give some insight and suggestions to spark a conversation. Hopefully we can start it tonight and it can carry on into your communities or with the people that you serve or your family. So my hope is that you leave here with some understanding of the role that you play in this collective movement that we as environmentalists should be a part of, because we all have a role to play. So we'll talk about briefly our climate crisis, we'll talk about some solutions that Faith in Place is doing, and we'll go into the intersectional environmentalist Dismantling Systems of Oppression, a book by Leah Thomas that we will be asking some reflective questions on. And then we'll talk about our upcoming events here at Faith in Place. All right, so we only have 1 hour. So I'm not gonna go into great detail about the climate crisis. If you want that information, I invite you to visit Faith in Place's YouTube channel, where we have a ton of webinars that we've done in the past that go into great detail about this topic. I encourage you to do that. We're gonna briefly touch on a few things here, and then we're gonna go right into our discussion questions. So the climate crisis is happening and the earth is getting warmer. All right? I think we all in this room hopefully can agree on that. And for this reason, climate activists have been working hard to seek a global approach to the issue. There have been gases naturally produced and those produced by humans through things like burning fossil fuels in agriculture. However, since the Industrial Revolution, we have been producing huge amounts of greenhouse gases, making the blanket thicker and the earth warmer at a much faster rate. And as a result, we are seeing extreme weather changes, more heat waves and wildfires, along with poor air quality. Communities of color are more vulnerable to the impacts. These toxic and dangerous conditions, such as lead poisoning, flooding, and mold, cause health disparities and other barriers that prevent many communities from flourishing. Illinois leads the country in fossil fuel burning plants located in communities of color. From asthma associated with climate change, children of color are 4 times more likely to be hospitalized and 10 times as likely to die. We see these injustices playing out all over our country in the communities located strategically near toxic plants that contaminate the environment where many low-income families reside. Next. So at Faith in Place, we support programs and policies that build climate justice, and our hope is to bridge the gap between dismantling racism and addressing climate change by focusing our advocacy and programs on people first, and ensuring that communities normally overlooked are lifted up. So we offer our green teams some resources that they can utilize to help reduce their carbon footprint. So let's take action by scheduling an energy audit. If your house of worship would like to benefit from a free energy audit, we do help you with a team to come out and do that for you. You can start a green team, like I mentioned before. You can also help to reduce food waste. We have information about that on our website. You can sign up for a smart energy program, which we'll talk about here in a second, and check out our policy platform and read more about what we're doing in Springfield. And you can advocate in your community. Next. So one resource you can take part in right now is the Smart Energy Program, where you can not only work on your energy consumption, but also save money while doing so with the peak time saving and hourly pricing program. And so with energy efficiency, we can help curb the rising costs. Next. Comments hourly pricing program is for residential customers with smart meters. The price you pay varies from hour to hour based on wholesale market prices, and you receive notifications and alerts of high prices, and you can choose to use less energy during high price times to save money on your electricity bill. Comments peak time savings. Residential customers with smart meters opt into the program, and get paid to use less electricity at high demand times. No cost to enroll in this program, and there's no penalty if you enroll and don't participate. And keep in mind that solar is also another way to assist you in your energy savings. Information about that and much more programs, energy saving programs, can be found on our website at faithandplace.org. Next. So here's our poll question for you tonight. Would you sign up for hourly pricing or peak time savings? Or if you already have hourly pricing or peak time savings, you can put that in the chat. Love to see that as well. Give it a few seconds for people to answer. Already have. All right. Thank you, Jacqueline. Yeah, I save a ton using hourly pricing, so I can attest to it actually working. If you follow exactly what it says for you to do, you will save some money on your bill. All right, let's share the results. %73% said yes. Well, that's all I need to hear, RC. So we can move on. All right. So next, we're going to talk about advocacy. So we here at Faith and Place believe that doing what we can in our own life to cut back on energy from fossil fuels helps to protect from climate change, right? So which is why we seek to change policies through our advocacy program. Making changes in your own home to reduce your footprint is great, but advocating for policy change is critical to the fight for systemic change. I'm trying to keep the dog from barking. It's bothering me, so excuse me while I pet him. Check out our new policy platform to learn what Faith and Place is currently working on and how you can get involved. To learn more about advocacy programs and request your Faithful Citizen workshop, check out our website at faithandplace.org again, so you can find out what's going on in our advocacy program. Next. And in case you didn't know, we do have toolkits that you can download on our website where you can actually learn about a lot of these things. Waste, for example, is an awesome toolkit. Uh-oh, I think somebody needs to mute themselves. Hearing some background. But yes, check.
You're muted, Isioma.
Okay, thank you, Elena. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Okay.
So download our toolkit. Next slide. All right. So there's a quote by Leah Thomas in her book, The Intersectional Environmentalist, How to Dismantle Systems of Oppression to Protect People on the Planet, where she writes, social injustice and environmental injustice are fueled by the same flame, the undervaluing, commodification, and exploitation of all forms of life and natural resources, from the smallest blade of grass to those living in poverty and oppressed people worldwide. It's terrible. Next. How have systems of oppression impacted Chicago? Please take 30 seconds and let's get some answers in the chats. What do you think are some of the oppressed systems that have impacted Chicago? Redlining. Absolutely. Food insecurity. Yes. Police profiling. Air quality and health. Yes. disinvestment, toxic sites. All of these are absolutely correct. Let's touch on a few of these that some people have already said. Next. All right. How many of you have heard of the map of inequality? I'll put that in the chat as well. So the map of inequality, also known as the redlining map, is a homeowner loans association map that was created to ensure that people did not default on their home mortgage. Developers were being subsidized to build housing only for white people, and the government saw this as an opportunity to increase home ownership to white people and push people of color to urban areas. So they created redlining maps to segregate areas. Green was for the best areas to live. Blue was for white collar upper middle class, and yellow was for working class or middle class. And the red was for hazardous areas where people of color lived. With this map, white people were able to obtain home loans and began to flood the best areas of the city. Then in 1968, right after MLK died, the government created the Fair Housing Act, which was passed to combat the housing inequality issue. Yet it was still never really enforced. So we can still see housing discrimination and segregation happening all over the country today. And in Chicago, we can clearly see that certain neighborhoods house different ethnic groups depending on the location and how old the homes are and the proximity into the lake or within the lake. Next. Basement flooding and lake erosion are also impacting homeowners along the lakeshore and other parts of the city, driving people out into different, having to live in different communities and gentrification. These are all systems impacting Chicago today. And at Faith in Place, we advocate for environmental justice. The United States Environmental Protection Agency defines environmental justice as the following. Environmental justice is the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. This goal will be achieved when everyone enjoys the same degree of protection from environmental and health hazards and has equal access to the decision-making process to have a healthy environment in which to live, learn, and work. The reason for this movement all stems from the institutionalized environmental racism being played out in communities of color. Essentially, the justice system is not broken, but doing what it was designed to do, intentionally worsen the plight of significant segments of its population, denying access to full freedom and prosperity. Ultimately, all of our systemic structures have dictated how we relate to one another, and in order to eradicate this form of oppression, we must pull at the root. And while bringing awareness to the environmental crisis we face locally and globally, we should also be shining a light on the systemic structures created to separate and divide us. Next. Writer Leah Thomas believes that in order to do this, we must all become intersectional environmentalists. How many of you read this book or heard of this book written by Leah Thomas before? You can put that in the chat. She says that an intersectional environmentalist is the inclusive approach to environmentalism that advocates for the protection of both people and the planet. So essentially, we cannot demand justice for the planet while ignoring the injustices of the people that are most impacted. Next. Oh, she has a podcast, that's right. If you haven't heard of her, definitely check her out. All right. She goes on to say that the intersectional environmentalist focuses on climate justice, amplifying historically excluded voices and approaching environmental education, policy, and activism with equity, inclusion, and restorative justice in mind. She says that the same systems of oppression that oppresses people also oppress and rape the planet. So let's think for a moment what can be done as individuals as our new role of intersectional environmentalists. We can, number one, as an individual, acknowledge the harm. We can actively listen to the voices of those impacted. We can speak up against injustices, and we can uplift others' voices. What about within our communities? We have voter education that we can include in our activism, which includes candidate education. So teaching our communities about candidates that most align to our beliefs and understanding. Prison voting rights also can be included in that voter education. Letting people that have been informally incarcerated know about their rights as they return out of the prison system. We can also host different financial freedom and stability seminars where we talk about investing and saving and owning and buying property, and talk to people about student loan debt and other financial services. We can advocate, so we can learn how to lobby and talk about certain policies and take our concerns to Springfield. And we can also talk about mental health services and provide support resources and counseling, our support groups, to help those that we serve. Here are some reflective questions that I would like for you all to think about. These questions are from the book, The Intersectional Environmentalist. So reflect on each one for a moment. How can I practice active, non-judgmental, non-defensive, and engaged listening when learning about different communities outside of my own? What resources can I utilize to learn more about questions I have regarding another culture, community, or faith practice before asking someone from that community? How can I amplify the work that's already being done and use my personal strengths to aid the cause? And how can I create space in my school, organization, workplace, house of worship for voices that have been marginalized? And those questions can be found in the chat. All right. So before we go into starting to end our discussion and open it up for questions, I want to take you all to the river Ganges in India. And I want to share some brief facts about what I learned about Hindu mythology and their belief of the river Ganges being the most fertile region on earth. The Ganges River is about 1,560 miles and is embodied by the Hindu goddess of forgiveness and purification, Ganga. The Hindu people would bathe in the water because that was their religious ritual. Out west, we probably call this baptisms. But the river had become so polluted that, and it was mostly due to the lack of resources in the poor areas, that the sacred water became a breeding ground for deadly viruses and diseases. But now not only was the river but not only was the Ganges River sacred, it was essential to the well-being of over 400 million people. So people began to wonder, like, what could be done to clean up this river, because they knew that everyone would benefit from it being clean. And the vast course of the Ganges River is a true testament to the amazing power of nature, but also a devastating example of what can happen when Mother Nature is misused. Everyone suffers. So what did activists do? They took it to court. And in 2017, a court ruled that the river Ganges had all the bearing living entities as a human being. This meant that the river was not only to be protected from pollutants, but it was declared to have human rights. This declaration only happened because activists and environmentalists began to focus on the impacts that someone's environment could have on their health. They understood the correlation and started collecting information in sewage that amounted to 390 million liters per day, carrying wastewater discharge in excess of 3 billion liters. The court's ruling was essential, and it sought to honor the spiritual purity of the water as it was, quote, central to the existence of half of the Indian population and their health and well-being. Therefore, polluting it would be considered equivalent to harming a human being. So after hearing this story, what can we learn from the movement activists undertook to protect the river Ganges? And in what ways can we apply the sentiment to how we work to protect the oppressed in the United States? Think about that question for a second. What can we learn from the movement the activists undertook to protect the river? And in what ways can we apply the same sentiment in how we work to protect the oppressed in the United States? Feel free to answer in the chat if you'd like. And next. So what do we know? We know that the root cause of the climate crisis is environmental racism. And there is a movement taking place called environmental justice, where Leah Thomas says we should be calling ourselves the intersectional environmentalist. And I would like to add that racial healing be added into this, because in order to do the change-making work necessary, we must work on our healing at the same time. So this is why I believe that racial healing is the bridge to assist us in our journey together. As you know, racial injustice is deeply embedded in the tapestry of American society. And this is why Faith in Place has begun to offer our grant teams racial healing opportunities. So racial healing circles are about 1.5 to 2 hours long, and it's facilitated by me, where we create intentional space to share each other's stories and experiences. And it's a way to grow in community while also working to actively find solutions to assist us in combating racial inequalities and other inequalities. If you're interested in a circle or affinity circle, please email me and we can talk more. It doesn't have to be within your faith community, it can be within your organization, whatever type of dynamic you have. There's some answers in the chat here. Lucy says the key is to grant rights to nature. What the heck, the USA can't even honor the UN Declaration. Exactly, right. Victoria says political activism can work to change the perceptions and even barriers. Absolutely. That voter education is so important. As the river died, so died the people. Yes, thank you. We go on to the next. All right. For faith communities, this is an example of a question that may be asked in a racial healing circle. How does your faith tradition speak to the issue of oppression? Does it lead people of your faith tradition to work towards liberation for all people? If so, how? And if you could create a world of civil liberties, what would that world look like and feel like? So those are just some reflective questions that we would ask in the racial healing circle, where we would ask in dyads and then come together as a group to answer those questions. All right. Like I said, we only had short time together. This is a soft introduction to this very complex topic. My hope is we can continue the conversation, maybe do a part 2 where we go even deeper. And if you would like to find out more information, I encourage you all to attend some of our Faith and Place events that are coming up. We have our Double Dutch Fest on August 6th with the rain date of August 13th. Bring the family out to enjoy nature. Our Green Team Summit. I don't know how many have been to our Green Team Summit, but it's one of our biggest events of the year. We have author Dr. Catherine Hale, who will be our keynote at the Green Team Summit. So please register for September 11th through the 14th for that. And in the chat, you can click on the link and register for that. I would like to leave you with this before we go into questions. The sacredness of our spiritual practices, whatever practice you believe, draws us closer to wholeness. And the more we expand our wonder and our care for humanity, the more fulfilled we become, and that energy is transferred. We transfer to transform. So my name is Isioma Odum. I am the Chicago Senior Outreach Coordinator at Faith and Place, and my email is in the chat. And now we are going to open up the floor for discussion and questions. And feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions.
I have a question. So can you describe a little bit more? I'm new to Faith and Place and the programming that you guys have. Can you briefly describe how the Green Team works?
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on what region you are in the city, you will be assigned a Green Team coach to work with you. And basically we'll contact you a few times a month to help you strategize on something you'd like to focus on at your house of worship. So we would get to know the members and talk more about what members are interested in. And we'll start planning different workshops and webinars to help inform people more about all of our programs. The easiest way to start a lot of times is through doing an energy audit, where we come in and we survey the building and we talk about ways to reduce your energy bill. And then from there, we can have an energy webinar to talk more about how you can reduce your carbon footprint through that. And then we also have opportunities for people through our Food and Sustainable Land Use program to go out into nature, host story circles, and do different nature activities, such as go to the Double Dutch Fest, for example. And then we have our advocacy program where we can talk to members about lobbying and how to go to Springfield and what issues and policies we're working on. So it all depends on what people are interested in, and then we kind of cater our programming that way.
Awesome, thank you very much. I have a son, a rising junior, who's interested in becoming a climate scientist and pursuing an environmental science degree in college. Would he be able to, with an adult mentor, initiate something like that?
Yeah, how old is your son?
He's 16.
16, that's awesome. We do have a youth program where we invite youth to participate in different site visits, and they learn all about environmental justice, and it's a year-round program. And it's a good way to do introduction to a lot of our programs, but also expand on other things that the youth are interested in, and they do projects and they present. So if you'd like more information on that, you can also share that information in the chat. But he'd be perfect for that. Absolutely. Yeah, contact Caesar, our youth program coordinator, for more information about how to get youth connected to our programs. Any other questions?
I have a question, Carolyn Lee.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you for all of your information. But I did see from the Alderman's office today about the double Dutch activity,
Yes.
and it will be at Trinity on 92nd Street in their parking lot on that date. So I
Oh.
did hear about it. Thank you.
Oh yeah, so
Crazy.
there might be other like double Dutch events going on, like maybe around the same time.
Okay.
Ours is taking place at Big Marsh Park. It's a bike park, and so it's a huge space.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I heard about that one because I live near that one again.
Oh,
Thank
okay, perfect. And that information, yes, it's just been dropped into the chat, so you can register for that as well. Praying for good weather. All right, any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. You know, as I look at you know, the crisis that we're in, and we talk about advocacy, okay, and I think about what Gutierrez from the World Health Organization stated in the April report. And that April report was the first time that they actually broke it down to the individual level. And normally they would talk about corporations and countries, but they broke it all the way down to individuals. And in there, his statement was that the things that an individual could be most impactful on is eat less meat, use renewable energy, and drive electric. And that was a first. And so then I noticed that that kind of coincides with other studies that have been done, plus the fact of the matter, I mean, that's the roadmap is that, yeah, that defines how we burn fossil fuels ourselves. Now, as advocates, we need to practice what we preach.
Yeah.
So therefore, you know, if we develop personal sustainability strategies, just like when you started out, you asked how many people want to do the net metering or the, yeah. So, okay, all right. Once you understand that the integral ecology of climate change, that what I do here in Bolingbrook impacts you in Chicago. What I do here in Bolingbrook impacts the Philippines. Yeah. So I guess, you know, to say that if you're an advocate, practice what you preach. Figure out in those three principles what you're going to do. And one good resource for that is livingthechange.net. In fact, they did, you know, the study that they did with Waynes and Nichols to come up and develop livingthechange.net. And it breaks it down into the three priorities, which happen to match with what Gutierrez was talking about. So if you follow that as an advocate, you're doing a lot. That's all I got, you know, because you're practicing what you're preaching. And anytime you talk about it, somebody asks you, well, what are you doing? You tell them, these are the three things, you know, these are the three most important things that an individual can do. And this is what I'm doing in these three areas. So just think about the impact. We have what, 41 people on this call right now? If we took that personal sustainability approach, we'd be advocating at the same time making a difference.
So Joanne, Jacqueline asked, can you share where you got those three things?
And I want to add with Julian is there's also the natural solutions. So there's $1 trillion tree project going on. And we should be planting trees, because there's also the whole thing about capturing, through our soil management and our tree planting efforts, capturing in our environment what we need to live. So I think there should be both approaches. And so I'd say there's also planting trees and that's things that we can do. We can pay for them to be planted in forests. We can plant them in our own neighborhoods, and also sustainable gardening. So making sure the soil is as rich as it can be to be able to capture the carbon it needs to. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, somebody asked the question, where did I get that information from?
Yeah.
I got to go to livingthechange.net. Okay. And like I said, the research was done to rank what's the important, most impactful things that you can do. And therefore that's, it breaks it down into the 3 priorities of sustainability, which are energy, eco-transportation, and food. And so you go from there to have, more plant-based diet and less food waste. So that's where that information came from. Plus the World Health Organization. Those are the 2 places that that information came from.
I love it. And, just to go back to what I said at the beginning, everybody has a role to play in this movement. And I think that's an important thing that Julian just said. When someone asks you, like, what are you doing? To have those answers ready. Like, this is how I'm contributing. This is the role that I play. I think it's important. It can be very impactful.
May I chime in?
Absolutely.
This is Wendell from Elkhart, Indiana. I'm inspired by what you've been saying in this program, and Julian, what you just said makes me think of 2 sides of a coin. The side of the coin of our personal lifestyle actions that we can take that have a ripple effect into our communities and around the world. I've also heard some environmental activists and analysts talk about the vital importance of being engaged with the policy end of things as sort of the other side of the coin. We need to be personally consistent with what walking the talk, but also engaged with the levers of policy. And that's really frustrating, often tedious and disappointing. But with coalitions like this one, we can have more leverage and, sign petitions. I've heard one of the most effective things is send handwritten letters to legislators. They get very few of those. Most of them are on personal issues. I'm frustrated about my street or whatever. Those are important too. But on a broader environmental issue, they get very few. So they do tend to take notice of those. And if you have a number of people sign that letter, all the more power. And then you can even publish that as a letter to the editor, and then they know thousands of people are reading that. Of course, now with social media, it's a whole different, you can use those levers too, and sort of, so to speak, hold the policymakers' feet to the fire as far as letting them know people are paying attention, educating ourselves first, obviously, on the policies that we want to advocate for, and then pushing for those. A question I had was for Isioma. Am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Isioma.
Isioma, sorry. For you, Isioma, and anyone else involved in your organization, what kind of collaboration do you do beyond Chicago? We're in Elkhart. I have people, friends and activists in different parts of the country and around the world. It seems like you're doing so much important work and all these nodes of action here and there. Is there collaboration going on, sharing best practices and ideas and resources and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the Green Team Summit, the event that we have later on in the year, brings together people from all over. It's 500 plus people sometimes that come to that event. And because we are virtual now, because of COVID, we were able to reach such a broader, like more audience. And so we're getting all kind of people from different parts of the world sharing their resources and information at the Green Team Summits, which is why I encourage everyone to register for that if you've never been. And that is one way we learn how to collaborate with different organizations. And our affiliation with the Interfaith Power and Light is also with a collaboration that we have.
Wonderful, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. You know, the saying is, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask. But in the very beginning of this presentation of that poll question, I was not familiar with what that was. So that's why I checked maybe. So could you explain what it is that you were asking about? It was two things on that first poll.
Yeah, so if you have ComEd, and Amarin also has a similar program, although theirs is slightly different than ComEd's program. I'm the Chicago Outreach Coordinator, so I know a lot more about ComEd. But they have a program, the Hourly Pricing and Peak Time Savings Program, where you can sign up through your account, and it's free to sign up. And it'll alert you with different messages on when to reduce your major appliances so that you can get money back on your bill or save money on your electricity bill. So for me, I always get the hourly pricing notifications, and I simply just follow what they say to do whenever I get that text message, and my energy bill stays really, really low. But I was saying to people, like, you have to kind of follow it in order for it to really, for you to see any type of effect on your bill. But it is something that's free, and it takes only like 2 minutes to sign up through your accounts. And we have more information that you can find on our website as well. Pamela, if you'd like more information, I want me to help you walk through on how to sign up, I can also do that.
Okay, I wouldn't have problem signing up. I just wasn't familiar with the names of the program that you had on the poll.
Oh, good. I'm glad you got to find out about it.
Okay.
It definitely spread the news.
Will do.
Share it with someone.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Isioma, would you also mention community solar? That is probably one of the best kept secrets in the world on how to reduce your energy electric bill, and at the same time reduce your carbon footprint, and,
Yes.
and give the opportunity for others to reduce their carbon footprint.
Exactly. And we can do a whole webinar on solar and community solar. If you would like, you can request that through our website as well. If you are a part of a house of worship that would like to host one of our webinars, you can pick which topic you would like to host, and there are incentives for that. So solar is a pretty popular one that people are usually interested in. So if you'd like one of those, we can definitely provide more detail webinar and go into greater detail about that. Any other questions?
Yeah, when he mentioned the solars, I'm familiar with the solar program. And for many years, I was a part of Mennonite denomination. And I'm still a part of a group of Mennonites. And we talked about the solars, and a couple of the gentlemen were working on that project. But they were saying we're talking about people being oppressed. In some of our neighborhoods where African Americans are, they can't afford the solars, even when they the process of even applying for help has been a real crooked road, so that a lot of people are not interested anymore because of the difficulty of trying to get on the program, then having the funds to get the solar panels. And so maybe that's something we could look at to help in that area.
Absolutely, letting people know about some of the things that they can avoid also when applying, so that they can qualify for the program, so they don't feel like they wasted their time with trying to go through the process would definitely be helpful. to have one of those type of discussions during those solar webinars, and also to hear more from people who've gone through the process and their experience and their success stories, I think would be helpful as well. So we can invite those people out, and maybe, you know, ask those important questions to those who are actually utilizing solar right now, so they can tell you from themselves, like, this is how much I've saved, and this is the process that I went through to get here. So maybe that would help with some of the discouraging things that people may think, you know, things are changing. So they're starting to get better with doing different programs. And the more people speak up and speak out about things that are not working right, then they can fix it and make it better.
Thanks again.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
This is Jessica. Something else I learned about recently was Donnell Baird's block power. I heard about it on NPR, Guy Raz, How I Built This, but he was noticing as he traveled around the country that a lot of people in certain situations were using their stoves or ovens to heat their apartments, and it was very unsafe. And so he created this, I think it's some sort of business, Block Power, to help bring renewable energy to those types of apartment buildings and everything. So I don't know much about it, but just wanted to share it and throw it out there.
Yeah, could you put that name in the chat?
Yeah.
Folks can check it out. Thank you for sharing that. And if there's any other resources that people would like to share in the chat as well, that's what it's for. So I'll encourage you to utilize that. I know, okay, I'll look that up myself. Never heard of it. Thank you, Jessica.
I appreciate the input about the lack of affordability of solar systems and so on an individual household level in many instances. My family and I, we'd love to get that, but you know, right now it's just beyond us. But and then you've got the big utility systems, and it seems like there's these either the individual or the big utilities. What really fascinates me, and I'd love to hear any input from that from any of you, on the microgrids and community energy ownership systems. I don't know if they're going on in Chicago, but there's certain rural and urban communities where they're sort of taking over the ownership of energy systems and making them publicly owned on microgrid and local levels. And that seems like one of the most exciting ways to go about this, to empower people to be able to afford to transition to renewables in a practical way, and to take ownership collectively on our energy system. So it's not just big corporate monopolies controlling it. Any information on that, I would love to hear.
Yeah, I know that there's, oh, Julian, did you want to?
Yeah, I was going to say that you're in Indiana, okay? And one of the things that, you know, community solar is a national operation, which if you can go to, I'm trying to remember which website it is, but you go to the website, no matter where you are in the country, you put your zip code in, and then it will tell you what is the closest community solar program is to you. And community solar, once again, let's define what community solar is so everybody is clear about it. That is, you have the opportunity to sign up for a subscription to a solar farm. You have your subscription on that farm. You get credits for it. Then those credits are passed on, and then when those credits are passed on, your supply charge is reduced. And so it's that simple. But like I say, it's really simple, getting really simple here in Illinois. But I've tried to assist people in Florida and also in California, because when we found the website, I'll have to look it up again and send it to you, Isioma, because it's you know, we stumbled on it accidentally and found that we could do this thing on a national perspective.
Mm.
So the thing is that you know, community solar is a great way for anybody. You don't even have to be a homeowner. You could be living in an apartment. You could, you know, any place, and it could work for your non-for-profit. It could work, you know, even you know, your house of worship. Your house of worship may not be in position to put solar panels on the roof, but they are in position to participate in community solar. So that's definitely something to look into. And by the way, I'm on the ministry of, it's called the Laudato Si ministry at my church at St. Francis of Assisi in Bolingbrook. And it's called Laudato Si because it's after the encyclical that Pope Francis wrote on the environment. And also the diocese also has, Joliet Diocese also has a Laudato Si ministry. And we've put on a few webinars on community solar. And we'll probably put another one on in October, and I'll send out that information, and so that, you know, you could participate in, because we put one on in let's see, last October, then we just had one on June 27th, and you know, like I said, it's really catching on. The thing is that you know, people save anywhere between $180 to $300 a year when you sign up for this.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
which makes a huge difference. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Joanne, for sharing. Anyone else have any last reflections, questions? Start. Do you know?
I wanted to quickly add, a few of you are Indiana residents, and also you asked about what the Indiana Green Teams are doing since we've been collaborating and been out here. I wanted to offer that information that we are going to be participating in a rally against NIPSCO's rate hikes. They are appealing the IURC, the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission, in order to increase rates for their consumers. And I've spoken with residents throughout Gary, throughout Maryville, and all over Northwest Indiana that are completely against this. And I think it's in alignment with this conversation that we've been having about individuals using their voices to represent themselves and their communities and the needs that they have. And I think this is a great opportunity to do that and represent ourselves as Indiana residents at that field hearing. So if anyone is interested, I tried to put the link into our chat, but I'll do that again. I think it's a problem with it, but I'll definitely provide that information for you all as well.
Thank you, Jaleesa.
Thank you.
Yes, please connect in Indiana. All right. Well, this has been a wonderful start to, like I said, a very complex topic, and there's so many different things that we can be doing to help combat all the issues that are happening to our planet. I'd like to thank Lauren again from our communications team for helping me with the tech, and for all the Faith in Place staff that's on right now. Appreciate you. And please go in good health, and we will see each other again, I'm sure. Please contact me if you have any other questions or want to schedule a racial healing circle. Please, please, please. Thank you and good